And we're going to be focusing on the Declaration of Independence, especially the preamble, and especially the second sentence of the preamble. Why do we want to do that? Well, we're all seeing a whole lot of information about it being the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding. But for us, as an organization devoted to civic engagement and empowering voters and defending democracy, the Declaration of Independence and the founding of our nation has a very powerful influence. And looking at it through that lens is what we want to do today. It can give us a sense of purpose and reinvigorate our motivation and our focus and structure for our civic engagement. So we will review some of the foundational truths in the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence, the sentence that many people say is the American creed, the values and truths and principles that we build our democracy on. And then we hope to use that for all of us to find ways to equip ourselves, encourage ourselves, and build our ability to use those foundational truths and values to take our mission forward. What leaves here, what is learned here should leave here. It should be applied and used to build a better democracy. As many people have said, we live in acrimonious times. There's a lot of division. There are so many forces pulling us apart. We also need to find the things that bring us together. And the Declaration of Independence is one of those. There was a U.gov poll last summer. It took 21 concepts, some of which came from the oath that is administered to naturalized citizens, and some of which came from a speech that had been given by Vice President Vance about what being an American meant. So 21 concepts, gave a large sample of Americans those concepts and asked them, what does it mean? Which of these things do you think it means to be a United States citizen in the 21st century? The first, most frequent answer at 90% was obeying the laws of the United States. But the second was supporting the Constitution, and the third was believing in the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Both of those were above 85%. It is something we have in common, and it is something we can use to speak to us as a democracy and to be civically engaged. So, if I had asked you before this popped up, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, what would you have said?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody also said John Adams. There was actually, at the Second Continental Congress, a committee of 5 was appointed to create the Declaration of Independence, to provide this justification of why the colonies were so mad at King George, right? So Thomas Jefferson was the lead author. He wrote the first draft anyway. But especially Benjamin Franklin and John Adams contributed heavily by suggesting edits and revisions. Some very powerful language like self-evident truths came from Ben Franklin. The idea of rights not being just present in people, but being endowed by their creator, so they had the force of some over and above governmental authority to reside within humans. That language didn't just come from Jefferson. In fact, the Committee of 5 went through 4 drafts and then presented it to the Second Continental Congress that then proceeded to slash 25% of it. And so the document that we have now is really a joint a production of many voices and many forces that are characterized by collaboration, compromise, and revision. And I think those 3 things, collaboration, compromise, and revision, that are all through this document, are also principles, while they're not the principles embedded in the content, they're characterized by how we came up with that document, and it's also something we can use as a model for thinking about government.
Ramsey,
Yeah.
the process is not characterized by diversity.
And I wish we could dig into every single issue. There are several of them, several issues in terms of the wording that I've learned so much in the process of developing this program in terms of how people think about what the language actually means, what it meant to the founders, what it means now, how we think about carrying it forward. If we have time during the discussion afterwards, when we get to the part of the sort of interaction and discussion, please bring that up as well as any other issues you want to discuss in more detail. So, it's an excellent point. There are many excellent points. Right now we're going to kind of move on and try to get to where we can get to that discussion and interaction. So, Walter Isaacson, a journalist and a successful journalist and writer who's written biographies of many important figures in our American history, has published a book called The Greatest Sentence Ever Written. And it's about this sentence we're going to dive into. As we develop this program, we explore the ideas of many people, his being some of them, but many others as well. But taking that concept of this second sentence as the greatest sentence ever written, and really delving into why that may be true, or the reasons that can be seen as true, is what we'd be doing today. And there are several reasons why that second sentence of the Declaration of Independence preamble could be seen as the greatest sentence ever written. One is that the writing is just downright beautiful. It's rhythmic, it has a cadence, it's pleasing to the ear, and so that makes it something very accessible. Another is that it has a very clear and logical structure, and you'll see that as we go through. It creates an argument in a very powerful way. In fact, some people have said that it is the most masterfully written, powerfully written political argument in history, because that it's both accessible and it has this very clear logical structure. It's also a radical reimagining of political power. The concept of the consent of the governed completely flips what being the basis of government, completely flips the most common conceptualization of what governments were based on. And it compressed some very complicated philosophical concepts into very direct, accessible, and quotable axioms. Those are things like self-evident truths that just captures it. Things like all men are created equal, that gives you something to really hang the rest of your argument on. And the concept of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It, again, gives something very quotable but accessible, but it still is capturing a very important philosophical concept that we'll talk about a little bit more as we break down the content of the preamble second sentence here. So can anybody recite the full second sentence of the preamble? So you can at least get part ways, right? No, that's the Constitution. We the people is the Constitution. We hold these truths to be self-evident that men are created equal, that here we go. I'll give you a cheat sheet, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seek, most likely, to affect their safety and happiness. Now we're going to break some of those down. You could emphasize different concepts, different axioms within this. We're going to try to break those down. First thing I want you to see, though, is that I said one of the reasons this is the most beautiful sentence is its clarity and structure. So you'll see there are 5 axioms here. Every time you see a word that, they're stating a premise. So we hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal. That they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and strength. That to secure these rights. And that, so those first 4 are the premises. Those are the logical premises. And the 5th one is the conclusion. So it's kind of like these. Do you remember your proofs in math? Sort of, we have this, given this, and this. These 4 things. Therefore, whenever any form of government is destructive of these things, then it's the right of the people. And this is the justification for the separation of the colonies. For saying, we have these reasons. Here's our logical proof that it is our right to proceed. Okay? Until I started really studying this sentence, that logical structure had escaped me. I just read it as a narrative. But it's really quite profound, at least to me. So we're going to take those axioms and break down the key concepts. This has been a joint process. I'm going to stand up here and go over some of what we've learned. But it's not just my ideas. It's ideas that Becky threw out there and helped identify, and research that Dave did, that I did. We all learned a lot. And so we'll start with them. I need to pay attention to my time, though. Am I doing good? Doing well. Okay. I'll try not to talk quite so fast then. But I do want to give us plenty of time for discussion. So, we will be looking at these 4 premises that laid the foundation for the conclusion that the colonies would be separated. Okay. So, the first of these is these truths are self-evident that all men are created equal. So I'm going to tell you 2 statements, and I want you to tell me if they're true, and if so, why they're true. The city of London, England, has a larger population than Johnson City, Tennessee. That's one. The second one is a triangle has 3 sides. Are those 2 statements true?
Yes.
Yes. How do you know they're true? Data and evidence. So the first statement, that London, England is larger than population is larger than Johnson City, Tennessee, is something that's called a truth of fact. These are things I've sort of learned, so I won't call myself an expert. But in Enlightenment terms, the distinction was made between truths of fact, which are truths that have evidence. They're testable. They require external validation. You have to count the number of people in London and the number of people in Johnson City. And then you can say it's true, because we counted them, and there's more. Do you have to do that with a triangle has 3 sides?
Yeah, it counts for 3 sides.
To say a triangle has 3 sides?
By definition.
It's by definition. That's right. That's what a self-evident truth is. It's not a truth of fact where you have external evidence. It's a proposition that is true within itself, by logic, by reason, by definition. The authors of the Declaration of Independence were talking about self-evident truths, things that did not require any external validation. It is self-evident, it is true within itself, inherently true, that all men are created equal. That's another one of those things we'll talk about later, but the all men part. But there are ways to think about that. So first of all, it's important to think about what self-evident means in terms of something being inherently true and not requiring any other justification. It is simply true that all bachelors are unmarried, all triangles have 3 sides. There's no proof you have for that. It's simply true by definition. So one of those self-evident truths is that all men are equal. And in this term, in this concept, equal, of course, does not mean equal in, height, equal in any personal characteristic. They're talking about equality in terms of largely the social contract and to some extent the moral equality of all individuals. So equal means that in the social contract, if you remember the sort of comment that in a state of nature, life is brutal and short. And so the idea of the social contract is that individuals, to be safe and secure and to have a sense of well-being and protection, give up certain rights or certain liberties in order to organize in a way to promote the safety and security of all. And that's what the social contract is sort of stipulating. And that means that under the social contract, everyone is politically equal, okay? So that's really that concept. Equal in moral worth, equal in inherent humanity, and equal in unalienable rights. Right? Are we good? We're going to be having a discussion about where we stand in supporting or actually living up to these principles as a part of the second part of the program. So hang on to what these ideas are supposed to mean, so that when you get down to discussing them, you can refer back to it. Then the second one we're going to talk about is endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So again, thinking about not just rights, but unalienable rights. So in this context, if something is alienated, it means separated, right? If something's alienated from something else, it's separated from it. Unalienable means it cannot be separated. So these are rights that cannot be separated from the human experience. And they give examples, 3 examples. They don't say these are all of them. And in fact, the Bill of Rights in the Constitution later goes on to specify others. But these are the examples, these 3 examples in the preamble that they gave. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, getting back to the social contract, refers to, the right of every person to survive, to live, and to be protected from harm. That's life. Liberty refers to the freedom to act according to one's conscience and to one's will, unless that action infringes on the liberty of anyone else governed by that social contract, right? So liberty is essentially agency. And then happiness. In this context, we're not talking about how we sometimes in modern times talk about happiness, which has to do with pleasure, feeling good about something. Happiness here refers to the lifelong quest. It's a complicated philosophical concept, but it really amounts to the pursuit of self-improvement, becoming more virtuous, engaging in civic virtues, building strong personal character, something that was referred to as sort of human flourishing. So it's not feeling happy and just enjoying things day to day, more pleasure than displeasure. It really has to do with a deep sense of human fulfillment. And that they're saying our Creator endows us with the right to pursue that, to pursue flourishing. I'll also point out, we're going to come back to this. Remember this word happiness here in this context and how it's defined, because we're going to come back to it. Right here, it says that, well, we'll go back. These truths are self-evident, that all men, this is talking about a personal right, the right to the pursuit of happiness, to strive for that, right? So it's at an individual citizen level that people have these rights. But we'll come back to that because they talk about happiness again in a different context. Then they move on to what that has to do with government and the kind of government that they've been living under British rule. They argue that we have these unalienable rights that we just had the three examples of, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that they're unalienable. And they argue that to secure these rights, that we're saying are self-evident and unalienable, that governments are instituted and they derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. Not from the king, not from any external power struggle. No, they're arguing no governments, no organized powers of government are naturally divine. That it is the consent of those being governed that determine what powers the government has, right? So the governed give governments their just powers, and not just power, but just power. Just power refers to not abusing authority, but limiting action to the things those governed have agreed to as a part of being part of that government. So, governments don't have each and every power. They only have those powers that the governed give to them. And that when governments do not adhere to that, satisfy that, hold on to that, comply with that, then the governed can alter or abolish such government because it is considered destructive to the governed. So, remember we talked about the four premises and then it's leading to a conclusion. We're coming up to stating what the purpose should be. So they abolish the destructive government or alter it, modify it in a way that is based on principles of those self-evident truths, that is respectful of the unalienable rights, and then organizes its powers to best affect their safety and happiness. So here we're back to happiness again. What's different about happiness in this context? What did somebody say?
Communal.
It's communal. The goal of government is to affect the safety and happiness of the governed, of the group. It becomes a common purpose. And that is very different. So we have happiness as both an individual right, but we also have it, and again, that has to do with that flourishing, that fulfillment, that civic virtue, that governments should be organized in a way to accomplish that. So that's a new goal for government too. I mean, that's not what monarchies were designed to do. And so the founders and the crafters of the Declaration of Independence were saying we have to create a society that provides for the education, for the creation of an informed electorate that can understand the decisions that they're making, and the ability to act in such a way as to make the government responsive to these values and principles. Is this where you take over? Dave takes over. They don't say we can abolish the government for just any old reason though, just because we're not quite happy with it. So Dave's going to take from here, and I'm going to be handing out some handouts that will break down the activity afterwards, but listen to what Dave's saying, and we'll pay attention to it later.
So the writers of the Declaration of Independence were addressing the King of England, probably the most powerful monarch in the world at that time. And so they were polite in sending them the resignation notice that the Declaration of Independence represents. So when the government becomes instructed to the ends, it's the right and the duty of people to alter or, in the extreme, abolish the government and institute a new government. They say prudence dictates that governments long established, like the centuries-old monarchy of England, should not be changed for light and transient causes. And so we enter the realm of grievances. And there are a lot. There were many reasons that motivated these people to alter or, in the extreme, abolish, divest themselves from the British government that controlled them as a colony. They list in the Declaration of Independence 27 of them. I'm not going to go through them, but I want to note, and this is not original with me, that a number of analysts have pointed out that they could be clustered in terms of executive, judicial, and legislative. And therefore, those are sort of the three challenges we'll see in forming a new, better government that were recognized by the writers of the Declaration. If you would like to someday look at the list, some examples of legislative ones are numbers 1 to 8. Executive, there's a number of them: quartering armies in peacetime, royal officers and swarms of officers that were hassling them by collecting taxes on tea and all sorts of things like that. The military courts and sending some of the rebels overseas to England to stand trial were among the grievances that they noted. So what we'd like to do as kind of an exercise is to ask you to consider, let's do this kind of one row at a time, and in interest of time management, maybe not necessarily have discussions at every table, but just privately for yourself. Let's take a look at that first row that he has kept among us in times of peace, standing armies. This would violate, this is kind of an executive type grievance that safety, happiness, civil supremacy over the military, consent of the governed over the king. Those are values from the preamble that are violated by this grievance. In your heart of hearts, if you were to give a letter grade to the 2026 American government, A to F, where do you feel we stand in terms of this grievance? Now, just let everybody privately write down their letter grade, and then I'll sort of by a show of hands give the class average, okay? So, standing armies in times of peace among us, A to F. And maybe the next column, a contemporary example that you're using to arrive at your grade. What's happening now or not happening now in the United States that leads you to give that letter grade to us in 2026. Another few moments to think of examples that justify your letter grade. The educators among us have to have reasons for letter grades, right? Okay. All right, let's see where the consensus is, if any. How many gave A's? How many gave B's?
To the whole sheet or individual?
Just to that first one, standing armies among us in peacetime 2026. How many gave C's? How many gave D's? Ooh, this is a tough class. How many gave F's? Ooh, okay. The last column is the hard one. Now, grievances, I mean, what the founders did was we had 27 grievances. We are, in essence, going to fight you. We're going to go into war. That's how much the set of grievances are. What could we do, short of going to war against standing armies among us, by way of civic action to improve matters? Take a moment to think about that, and then we'll again share.
Put January 6th back in jail.
Abolish ICE.
Okay. So,
educate and inform our peers.
okay, educate and inform peers about.
What's going on with ICE as a standing armies?
Okay, and I guess Ramsey's suggestion was that I should sample among those D and F people. What were your examples that would justify giving us such an awful grade?
ICE overreach.
Killing Americans, militarized.
The ICE people were not authorized to
Use deadly force.
use that force, and they're all wearing masks.
Okay.
And they should not do that.
So ICE. Other examples besides ICE?
I just wanted to say that I upgraded from an F because Pam Bondi got fired. And the ICE guy got fired,
Okay.
But there was place for the same position.
Yeah.
Send in the National Guard.
National Guard is another unit of military that has been deployed right here in little old Tennessee, in Memphis. And so, yeah, ICE, the militarized federal police force units, but also our state National Guard and the nationalization by the president of state guards to go in. Those would both be examples. What can we do about this? Okay, so besides kind of informing one another what's going on, ICE is here, ICE is there.
Get in good
Bear
trouble.
witness.
Bear witness, show up.
Exactly.
Okay.
elect different leaders.
Okay,
vote.
or, yeah, so we got rid of some of the appointed leaders, but who were they appointed by?
Elected.
So, yeah, that would be
25th Amendment.
impeachment, 25th Amendment would go to the commander-in-chief of the military forces, right? Okay. And these are all non-violent methods. The more that I have read about grievances, there's a whole bunch of writing among political scientists about resentment and grievance politics. This is not new, but vivid examples of the French Revolution and so forth. So if we are not careful, we will go ballistic in our grievances that we feel so deeply, right? And on the other hand, or among other people who feel strongly about this, we also see political violence, right? Among those who support the deployment of the Guard and the use of ICE. So grievances are very powerful emotionally, and we need to be careful to think about how we can alter rather than revolt and try to, I don't know, civil war or declare some kind of independence. That was the extreme example that the founders took, but we hope that we can keep the republic, if we can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin said, by not going ballistic. Let's take a look at the second one. And again, I encourage you to reflect on this, take it home, talk with others about it, but we're going to, in the interest of time, move on to the second one. That king has obstructed the administration of justice. This would sort of violate but this is a judicial grievance, the respect for the rule of law and of just powers of the government. Think about the United States 2026. What's a letter grade that you would give? And in the next column, why? What's your justification for the letter grade that you give? Okay, how many give us an A? Can I hear B? How many would give us a grade of C? Goodness. How about D?
How about D minus?
Okay, that's one of the D's. How about F's?
How about an F minus?
And why? Why?
Well, he's weaponized the Department of Justice, for one thing.
Telling,
Okay.
the leader telling the United States prosecutors, not his, but our
Well, that's
prosecutors, to convict his personal enemies.
Enemies,
I
okay,
mean,
prosecute
that's
them.
just, it's so outrageous.
Okay, what else?
I'd
The
like
pardoning
to
of
go
people
with Brian's.
of all January 6 people who were guilty and
Yep.
declared guilty.
Okay,
I'd
pardon?
like to give the quote of Brian Stevenson. The opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice.
Okay,
Pardoning people who have been convicted of criminal offense for money, which is what is happening. Example, Harshbarger.
Donations and donors
Yeah.
receiving it?
Let's not overlook the release of the Epstein files.
Right.
Congress unanimously said release it,
Okay,
Making money.
and he has not done that.
what else?
A big one is denial of due process to not only our own citizens, but our immigrants who are here legally, and also denial of due process to his political enemies.
His people declaring that they are.
Nor is the Constitution.
Okay, and there are some, somewhere I read recently that people routinely are sworn in the federal government are sworn to protect the Constitution, but then under the current administration, they're reminded that you need to follow the policies of the president. And that is more powerful in some cases. Yeah.
Those people are fired. Those that took an oath to uphold the Constitution have been fired.
And don't, and don't supersede it or subordinate it to the policies. Okay, so my goodness, what are we going to do? Last column. What can we do?
I think we need to make the public aware of the truth behind what is happening as opposed to
Okay.
just saying we gotta fight for this.
Make the public aware of what's going on, and also what the law does say, even though it may be ignored or spun in other directions by the powerful people. And that is kind of parallel to the first one suggestion for the first one, that we educate one another. So raise awareness, making ourselves aware of what's going on. Yeah.
I think there's one thing we have to keep in mind when we go all the way back to the beginning. There are people who do not believe that it is self-evident of equality, etc.
Yeah.
Because it was never.
And that's
We're
what we're being
bypassing.
challenged with.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides making people aware of what's happening now, we need to re-educate everybody about the founders' ideals that we still take to be fundamental to being American. And so that's another very important, although very difficult, because it revolves around values and in these polarized times taking sides. But we need to reach out, not just to our echo chamber, which we have evidence of here with the distribution of letter grades, but to others as well. So those difficult conversations need to be had, where we explore these complicated values and connections.
I think beyond making people aware, we need to make people care. That's what's wrong.
There's a hostility that is beyond belief.
Yeah.
Not just in this, just
One of the things that in this wording is all men. Most of the people in this room, that would not apply to them because we had no rights as women. We had no rights as minorities. So they weren't even counted in this at all. So most of this room would not apply to us.
So another whole
we pledge allegiance to it.
another whole layer of this discussion that we won't get into today, but would be kind of the originalism and fundamentalism of interpreting what did the founders mean? What were they thinking? And that's a very popular way of looking at this that certainly is debatable. Okay, let's try another one. He has refused his assent to laws necessary for the public good. This one really is the legislative function. The colonists were passing these laws in their various colonies, and the royal governor or parliament would refuse to accept those laws or legitimize those laws that came from the people, the colonists. In America today, 2026, refusing to accept laws necessary for the public good. Think about a letter grade and think about some justification of what you see going on for that letter grade, or don't see going on for that letter grade.
the last bill on voting rights.
All right, let's do the letter grades first. How many give us an A? How many give us a B? Including B minus, okay. How many give us a C? How many give us a D? Including B minus. Okay, we got a couple. How many give us an F? including F-minus, okay. And why? What's going on?
wing of the White House?
Yeah.
Okay, building the east wing of the White House.
Bulldozing.
Oh, bulldozing, okay.
They totally gutted our environmental protections.
Okay,
Totally gutted.
Stripping the government.
yeah,
National
okay.
parks.
They let an unelected person come into the White House and appoint youngsters to go through and destroy
Fire.
agencies
How
and
about
to
declaring war, which is
divulge
supposed to be
all of
declared
our
by Congress?
sacred social security information.
Okay,
So
so
how you feel
Doge,
safe when
all the actions by Doge,
all of our information
The other
is.
thing that
interfering with elections, the gutting of the voting rights laws.
The gutting of the civil rights laws, the equal opportunity laws, and all of those laws
DEI, affirmative action,
that try
okay,
to make our former injustices illegal.
okay,
What about declaring the war without even consulting Congress?
okay,
Spending all of our money in many cases without Congress being awarded the right to do it.
yes.
How about going into war? Someone mentioned
Yeah,
that
yeah,
again.
war,
You said that.
war powers, just asserted rather than, checking with Congress, which is the legislative body. So executive overreach or ignoring of the laws, like the king. So what do we do about this?
Go to them out.
All right, voting, yes, voting them out. That's for elected officials in the executive branch. What about our legislative branch? Okay, all right, power of the vote. Other ideas? Yes.
I think we also consider the organizations that we're a part of and support with our money that can afford to file huge legal challenges in court.
Okay, so, organizing, getting together in groups that, have, larger amounts of money and people, to sue. We could also, I guess, apply that to, supporting candidates or opposing candidates in elections of executive and legislative branches.
There are local examples of this same thing. For instance, the fact that our local government did not investigate complaints about Sean Williams for years and years. And then they paid, rather than go through the trial like they should have for the victims, they paid them off. And now we're getting our property taxes raised by 28%.
So
Because of all the money that we've spent on that.
So the selective or partial enforcements of the laws
Ignoring
is a broad set of issues, I guess you'd say, in this area. Yeah.
Finding ways to educate and engage younger people that may not be understanding and hearing what we're talking about. It doesn't affect them. They're busy and trying to make a living, raise a family. And how do we get to those people or those who think it doesn't matter if my vote doesn't matter, and the apathy? And that's a huge, I think, area that's been untapped.
Okay, and that I hear echoes of the suggestions earlier that raising awareness and education, doing that, and then another theme that seems to be using the vote so far as we are able. So those are two kind of meta themes, constructive themes, short of violence, that we can use.
Take money out of politics.
Take money out of politics, was the
Repeal
suggestion.
Citizens United, repeal it.
Or, yeah, somehow legislate it, to
Citizens United,
make the law, that, would effect that. Last one. is affected to render military independent of and superior to the civil power. And that's not powers derived from the consent of the governed. This would be another executive one. What letter grade would you give us right now in 2026 and why? Separation of the military from the civil oversight. Okay, how many give us an A? How many give us a B? How many give us a C? Okay, how many give us a D? And what's left? F. Okay, and why? What do you see?
One thing, the gutting of the military, when you replaced all of the major officers in the military, only by people who say yes.
Yeah, okay, so sacking the senior positions in the military promotion apparatus, yeah, with an emphasis on women and minorities.
Might be going bad in the war because of this.
And putting in leaders who are not capable of doing the job, but are beholden to the president.
Okay, it's the appointment of senior, like Secretary of Defense, who
Secretary of War.
Secretary of War now. Yeah, okay, so people have been appointed in civilian oversight positions who are more politically qualified than they are necessarily militarily qualified to oversee the armed forces. What can we do?
Write our congressman.
Write our congressman.
She don't care.
Yeah.
What else?
Maybe somebody else's.
Yeah.
Stand up a candidate who is willing to say no.
Okay.
Make the representatives have open town hall meetings.
Okay, make the representatives have meetings, support candidates who are willing to call this out, to oppose the current system. Again, we have a mix of using the power that we have through the vote and kind of mobilizing or raising awareness among a number of people.
One of the problems with voting is you have to have a candidate to vote for.
Right.
And if it is a one-party system, you don't have any opposition. So we've got to support candidates who are qualified and who are willing to put themselves out there.
Yes. And in a way, that's a nice transition to the last point. We live in a more deeply than ever before, gerrymandered state, but it's a red state. There are more deeply than ever before, gerrymandered blue states as well. How can e pluribus unum, out of many, can we make one these days? The letter grade distribution was not well-shaped. And so I wonder, that second bullet point, how might a different group of people rate America? I'm thinking there are groups out there who would give all A's, or A's and B's, no F's, no D's.
Or would give F's for an entirely different reason.
Or perhaps for a different reason. So, because we are a whole country, even though we are very polarized, very evenly divided, how can we live together? How can we hang together? Lest we hang separately.
It does seem like there's a lot more separation than
yeah. So let me just suggest here, he has refused his assent to laws A conservative today might say, well, the federal executive branch is blocking state level laws on border security. That's why we had to send the Tennessee Guard down to Texas to help out, because there weren't enough federal forces down there to stem the tide. On energy, you know, the federal government, this EPA thing, it's strangling us. It's making us dependent on Middle Eastern oil, or especially in these times, you know, limiting the ability of us to frack more and get more oil so that we can escape this pressure job that Iran is pulling on us. Elections, I mean, my goodness, we have really come a long way since the 1950s and 60s in the South, you know, and with affirmative action. I mean, it's so much better than it used to be. Let's get rid of the Voting Rights Act and these restraints. They've outlived their usefulness. What we need to do is restore federalism and states' rights. We need to stop Washington from overriding local voter mandates. The progressive view is probably already represented here. The judiciary or the conservative states, by preemption, are blocking civil rights, environmental laws, voting laws. What we need to do is enact more sweeping federal legislation, or bring it back to constrain this. So what you all feel here in this room is forcefully felt, but we need to realize as an entire country that there's another group of people out there that feel very differently about this. To wrap up, and this is going to be like hard homework. I don't have the answers, but we need to find the common values, or maybe some C and D and B grades that we can affirm together to survive another 250 years as we go forward. Well, we've made it further than what, any other constitutional democracy in history. And this is tough. I think I'm going to finish with the quote that's been attributed to Winston Churchill. Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried. So democracy is really hard work. And I hope, I think Ramsey made a great point that some of those first values of how the Declaration was written, collaboration, compromise, difficult conversations, that may be the way forward. It's not going to be easy. It's not like there are magic bullets, because for every action, there's going to be an opposite and equal reaction as we try to swing things back and forth. So, yeah, I guess that's where we. Yeah, how can we think about this? The Constitution, which we haven't talked about in a lot of detail, has a lot more really powerful, valuable ideas, and it, even though it's not easy to change, has been over the centuries a living document. We have had amendments that have tried to respond to things like all men are created equal, male property owners, white, and so forth. So I hope to leave you then with this, nuanced view that there's a lot of grievance going around on all sides, but there's lots of opportunity. And as we look back, we have weathered difficult situations before, and it's like this phrase, more perfect union. It's not perfect yet, but if we have that growth mentality, that we can do better. That's what I I find comforting. I hope you do too.
So Dave and Ramsey have given us a lot to think about. But there are a couple of things I want to leave people with, and it's a reality I've had to come to grips with. Is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Maybe you can even look at it as a relay race. One thing that I keep coming back to, no matter how imperfect the union is, people are still people. You need to show up, okay? I mentioned earlier about our accomplishments observer corps. Every engagement that you can go to, make your face be seen. They're still human beings, regardless of whether they agree with what you do or not. Show up, be there, let them know that you're engaged and that you care. And maybe I'm naive, but I gotta think that eventually, for some of them anyway, will make a difference. But show up at your county commission meetings. A lot of the decisions are being made there. Be an observer, join the observer corps. Listen, Dave can give you some guidance on that one. You're not there to beat them across the head, but when they recognize your face, when you do go back to beat them over the head, at least they'll recognize you, that you've been there before. So I want to thank these guys. This was an excellent. I hope you guys felt it was worthwhile. And listen, thank you for attending the business. And please welcome. And you want to make sure that you get some refreshments, take some home. But welcome the new board members and our new treasurer. Let's sit on this one as you go out. And next month, I do want to mention, it'll be in the newsletter. We're going to have a really exciting, I think, an exciting program. Like I said, Ramsey and Ruth, like I said, they were working on, like I said, a postcard campaign. So there's a list of like 400 voters in Johnson City who have not really traditionally turned out, like I said, to vote. So this is trying to do a postcard campaign. You'll hear how successful that's been, some data from Ramsey, but come prepared to write, okay, next month at the meeting. Okay, thank you guys.